Hello friends, welcome to another edition of Transformational Astrology. Here we are in a new year, 2016, with Mercury retrograde as well, and a powerful new moon coming up this weekend. So a reminder to go ahead and subscribe to the video channel. You can see it below your screen here. And let's get started. Let's take a look at this new moon. Well, here we see the new moon, and it's pretty dramatic. If you look closely at it, you'll see the new moon at 19 degrees of Capricorn is actually very close to Pluto at 15 and nearly 15 and a half. So it's a few degrees away, and definitely emphasizes the Pluto factor. What also emphasizes Pluto, of course, is the square with Uranus. We've been talking about that again and again. It's getting pretty close now, a little bit over a degree, less than a degree and a half. So Pluto and Uranus in square signals this tumultuous decade. I call it the turbulent teens. It echoes the dynamic 60s when Pluto and Uranus were conjunct. And you see so many of the similar factors, similar themes coming up in the culture right now. So, women's liberation, civil rights, the civil rights movement of the 60s that was so important as part of that whole revolutionary period of time against the establishment. And once again, we have an established society that's kind of a little bit out of control, don't we? We have a situation where a lot of people are beginning to stop and protest. We have the candidacy of Bernie Sanders, which is revolutionary in nature, to try to change the direction of the society to some extent. We have more of the sexual mores changing. We have the civil rights movement of our time. Gay marriage has been approved by the Supreme Court, which is quite revolutionary in and of itself. So looking at this January 9th new moon coming up on Saturday in the afternoon, late afternoon, even later on the East Coast, 5:30 p.m. PST, we're looking at a lot of Pluto, and so we will feel like this whole weekend we are tuned in a way that we have not been previously to the changes that we're in the midst of. We're in a very introspective time right now. We have Mercury retrograde, and you can see Mercury is re-entered into Capricorn. It'll go all the way back to, I think it's 14 degrees of Capricorn. It tangles with Pluto just as it stations, by the way, which is will be another dramatic event on the 25th of January. And right now what we're seeing is that Mercury having gone retrograde just a few days ago on the 5th at the first degree of Aquarius, it definitely affects people that are born at the beginning of the fixed signs, the very early degrees of either Aquarius or Leo or Taurus or Scorpio. It affects people most strongly in that particular instance, or if they're born at the very tail end of the preceding sign. Because being that it's the first degree, or the second degree actually, it's 1 degree of Aquarius where it actually retrograded, that hits your chart in a certain way if you've got a sensitive point there. So if you're born right near the very beginning of Aquarius, you're born around the 23rd of January, for example, it's going to be a strong time for you. Now, people that have Mercury retrograde to begin with may not feel the same way. They're used to it. That's something that they have natally. So when you're born with Mercury retrograde, they say you don't really feel the effects so much. But if you're born with Mercury direct, which most people are, you feel it a little bit more so, and you would feel like things are a little bit going wrong. You can't quite get the connections. Mechanical breakdowns are more likely. And it really is a triggering event for internal process. So you could be thinking about things, you could be redoing in your mind. They say everything beginning with RE, so you could be redoing, rethinking, reviewing, replanning. And the ticket with Mercury retrograde is not to get too attached to any one point of view. Don't all of a sudden get a wild idea, this is going to be a different way to do it, and just launch out into a new direction, because the chances are that direction will change over the next few weeks at some of the peak points of the retrograde period. And then, in February, when it straightens out, that'll be a new situation again. And so it's best to wait before you make any final decisions, if you can, until the middle of February. The period of time when Mercury is recovering its lost ground, and I can show you with a pointer. So here's Mercury, moves all the way back to the middle of Capricorn, the sun and moon will be long gone. And that's where it will actually intersect with Pluto, which is marked right here in the very middle of Capricorn. And then when it goes forward again, it will take a while to get out of Capricorn back to Aquarius, and that's what we're talking about, that period of a couple of weeks from the 25th when it turns direct until around the middle of February. That's when it's still recovering its lost ground. It's considered the retrograde shadow. It's best to wait as long as you can past the beginning of February before you get too carried away with new ideas, new decisions, new contracts. Until then, think everything over carefully, look and listen. And of course, it's a very internal time. It's a time when you're more introspective. So it's a good time to stop and think, and really, especially with this new moon coming up, where it's a brand new situation. We are looking at a new way of looking at ourselves, at our situation that we find ourselves in, at maybe your life direction, where we're going to go with things. So it's a very powerful time right now, as it has been. And it's time to really stop and think, what's going on? Here we are at the beginning of a new year. What's it going to be like? Where are we really headed? What was really in our best interest long term? Where can we go? Where can we go from here? So that's the important message of this time. Now, it's also interesting to note that Mars has been moving through Libra. Now it's entered into Scorpio. And Scorpio is its own sign. Mars is a co-ruler of Scorpio, along with Pluto. And, it rules Aries. Obviously Mars does, but it's mostly associated with Aries. Militancy, being very much your own person. You've got to start everything new yourself. You're the one that's going to do it. But in Scorpio, it's also very powerful. It's its own sign of Scorpio. And so that is the intention to really, no matter what, make something happen. Similar to Eris. Now, Eris is like that too. Eris is a warrior energy, similar to Pluto, and it does have to do with making something happen just on your own. And we might notice that, Jupiter has just a couple of days ago stationed retrograde 23 degrees. It's right on the nodal axis. And it is making a retrograde aspect to this Eris position. So that brings Eris more strongly into our consciousness, both with the fact that Jupiter is making that aspect to it, and also the fact that this new moon at 19 degrees of Capricorn is a square, is it not, to 22 degrees of Aries, where we find Eris. So this is a very powerful time all around. It's a powerful time for taking a stand for yourself, for looking into what's going on with you, for actually being very conscious of your values and what you want to achieve in life in long term. What is the real purpose of what you're up to right now is something you really want to be thinking about. We notice also in this new moon configuration that Venus and Saturn are actually conjunct, Saturn being the ruler of Capricorn. So it's a lot of energy in the Capricorn realms, with Mercury moving back through there, with the new moon in Capricorn, with Pluto there, very emphasized right now. So all you Capricorns are really in for it, and I think anybody in a cardinal sign, also for that matter, Libra, Cancer, also Aries, you're really in for it. This is a time of real churning and thinking things through and finding the way to get past what's been stuck and to maybe let go of what doesn't work for you anymore. Time to let go, move on, get on with the next thing, have a new plan. Well, I always like to end with resources, and the resource for Pluto is really Jeff Green's book, Volume 1 and Volume 2, about Pluto, The Journey of the Soul. He's very profound on the subject. And also Stephen Forrest wrote a very nice book about Pluto called The Book of Pluto. It's called The Book of Pluto, Finding Wisdom in the Darkness. And it's a terrific book also. Of course, Pluto is, generally speaking, just a bear. There's a lot of transformation. They say it's the wrecking ball. It comes and disrupts what's going on to make way for the new thing. They say with Pluto it's the chaos, but do not focus on the chaos, but await the birth that is coming. Also, another resource that I always want to mention is my book about Eris, which has been very well received. It's a new planetary archetype, parallel to Pluto, a cousin of Pluto, same astronomical category as Pluto. And that book is called The 10th Planet, Revelations from the Astrological Eris. And of course, the Time Passages software does have Pluto interpretations all throughout, including transiting. Recommend that as well. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Okay, have a great 2 weeks.